Guy?
Oh, definitely, hundred
Oh wow,
percent
interesting.
better than Family Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are
Family Guy might,
live. We are finally live. We're
huh?
just talking about Family Guy, South Park. The hottest take of the day so far, and we are 2 seconds into the stream, is that South
Well,
Park
real,
is funnier than Family Guy for Zemo here.
well, Well, real quick, Family Guy, they have very witty jokes, but it doesn't serve the plot, right? Like, it's always like, yeah, remember that one time I was David Hasselhoff's car?
Yeah,
It's a bunch of gags,
but
which is
that's like,
fine. Those are funny.
but
But
that's like the
South
fun
Park,
part.
the entire yeah, I know that's what makes Family Guy Family Guy. But South Park, the entire like episode will be it'll have metaphors, but it'll be an allegory for something. Like the whole episode will be a joke onto itself with jokes included. Just the writing is better, the characters are developed better, the plots are better. But like if you really watch Family Guy and follow the plot, like it's just a shit like a crap like a mid plot with really funny jokes thrown in there. Like, oh, let him fight a chicken for 10 minutes. That's funny. Which, I'm not hating on Family Guy. I'm just and
You
I'm
are.
just I just think South
You're
Park.
pissing on my religion, man.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. South Park is just
Trey,
it's
do you like South Park more than Family Guy?
Yeah, I 100% agree because the dry I don't know if it's dry sense. Oh my gosh, this word is escaping me. The satire.
satirical.
South Park.
Yeah.
Yes, the satire.
Yeah.
Is what does it for me.
Yeah,
Right.
they're some of the best at satire, and you have to, and they're also because they make their shit like in 7 days, so they're never like late on current events. Now, their newer stuff is not that great. I haven't watched any of their newer stuff that much, but like, their first maybe 17 seasons are excellent. You know what I mean? And yeah, like their satire. So like they would do their stuff in like 7 days. So their stuff was always very fresh. You know what I mean? If they made a joke about Bill Clinton or George Bush, it was very, very fresh. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Or what if they made a joke about Bill Clinton in George's bush?
The religious stuff they do is hilarious too.
Well, the ultimate is the Cartoon Wars episode where they actually made fun of Family Guy.
My hot take is that Travis is no longer, quite frankly, allowed to ever shave his beard. This is a disgrace. It should be outlawed. I do not like this.
Oh my God, he's so right.
Oh my God.
Well, everyone mute because this is the hot take episode, and our good friend, Driftonwood, says that they have a hot take. Let's hear it, Driftonwood. All ears.
We need to bring pride back to American infrastructure and residential housing.
Did you say pride?
Like to the construction? Yeah, bring pride back to the construction of American infrastructure and residential housing.
And what would that
be included in it?
What would that look like? Everything covered in pride flags?
No, that's not the pride I was going for. Although if that's what people would like, then I mean we could totally do that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking. I feel like there used to be a culture where people kind of respected building a home nicely and having nice things, and it's gone a little bit by the wayside with some of the construction of today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and what are some of the things, like the elements you think that once were, like, let's try to get specific, that you don't see anymore? Are things too cookie cutter? Is there a lack of identity?
So the best example I have is there's a national builder, Ryan Holmes, that I think I don't know the specific number, but basically you sign a contract and you're in your house within 3 months. But then you're given a roll of painter's tape, and you're told to put painter's tape on anything that's not right with the house. And at that point, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, we'll fix whatever you think is messed up. And so then at that point, you're buying a house that's already expected to be not in the best shape. It's just there's some builders that are good and there's some aren't. And I feel like at one point, not everybody, but people wanted to try and build the best that they could.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much. I could be wrong.
I completely agree, and I understand what you're saying. Like, can I talk right now?
Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, it's
Okay. Yeah. If people look up, like, I think it's the minute. There's a conspiracy theory called the Tartaria conspiracy theory, where basically ancient civilizations built like great buildings and we sort of just like stumbled upon them. It's obviously bullshit, but like if you look at like say the Minnesota courthouse, for example, like the artistry, the size of it, the masonry, the columns, the aesthetics of it are fucking breathtaking. And nowadays everything is just like like how in Fight Club it's like a copy of a copy of a copy, like just everything's like cubicle. There's no like flavor. Not that there aren't great artists and stuff like that, but and when you get to rich areas like out in the woods where there's like expensive cabins and shit, then that can change. But when you're in the suburbs or a lower middle class neighborhood or whatever, yeah, like our infrastructure and especially our buildings are like, you know, they're just like if you look at great architecture from the 1700s, 1800s, like a cathedral, I mean, that architecture is just unbelievable. And now we're in a supposedly advanced society and we produce nothing
Yeah.
that can compete with that shit,
Yeah. Houses fall apart. I repointed a brick building from the late 1800s, which is you just remove the old mortar, you put new mortar in. And I mean, I was probably the second person to have done it just based off how old they are. And those bricks were made before they had actual standards for making bricks. And I mean, if that building's properly maintained, it's going to be there for a long, long time. And it just feels like the amount of maintenance that needs to go into what we build now for homes, if you even get a properly built home in the first place.
And everything is controlled obsolescence. I don't know about homes and stuff, but definitely appliances,
Oh yeah, they're built to break down.
Yeah. And that's like been proven, with certain things. Not everything, but
But yep, that was my hot take.
But yeah, seriously, y'all go Google pictures of I think it's the Minnesota courthouse. It's just the size and the grand scale of that thing is just like, and it was built in like the 1880s or something. And
I don't know, the Sphere in Las Vegas is pretty cool.
Yeah, like you got
Yeah.
this is what I want to get into is like kind of the counters to this hot take. And
yeah,
and like we look at the Spheres, we look at some of the great stadiums that have been built that are like 10 times the size of the Colosseum in Rome. What are some counters to this position if we were to steel man the other side of what they're going to say?
Yeah, I think if you go tour England these days and take an extended stay with friends or family, there's old buildings that are built with quality, quality defined by, real stone, historic landmarks that are still there, have been around for, hundreds or thousands of years, but they don't have plumbing or heating or cooling, and like the quality of life aspect is actually not necessarily up to par or up to snuff as what you'd expect in America. So I think the question that I would maybe like pose to the pride of building aspect is like the profit incentive. I think we're just incentivized now to build as cheaply and efficiently as high of a cost, quality of life compared to the cost of build. Like we're constantly kind of weighing that equation, and I feel like we strike the mark of that in the U.S. in a way that maybe other countries don't. I think ultimately it's driven by like profit incentives, trying to like pull out as much profit from Americans as possible. But ultimately, like, our homes are pretty good. They're going to last for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and you're going to have running water, pretty good heating, cooling, maybe that you can't get in other places.
Yeah, no, and I agree that there's certainly like new builds that are groundbreaking and couldn't have been ever built before, and like there's new stuff that is awesome, and there are houses that are built well. But it just seems like overall the bar is set pretty low for having a house built, and if your house is only going to last for 30 years, that's not a good thing. Like your footer should last longer than 30 years, and it should have proper waterproofing. Like these are things that kind of don't get inspected or looked at properly. And then like that can cause issues down the line to, as someone would worry about well-being. But then in my opinion, if you're buying a house thinking that these things are done and they aren't being done, like what are you actually paying for? You're kind of being deceived at that point. So that's kind of where I'm going with it is, if you're expecting to have proper waterproofing, proper drainage, proper infrastructure, like proper foundations on proper grade, like all of these things that should be there for your home to last. Because again, 30 years for your home is not, you should be passing your home on to your kids or selling it for somebody else to pass on to their kids. I don't know.
Only other kind of counterpoint that I would raise, and I've not really looked into this too much, but had a brief experience with it, was in Japan, where it's almost a completely different kind of concept or mindset. And they actually build with intention of scraping periodically, every half century or whatever the number is, with the intent of, hey, we know whatever we're building now is going to be outdated in 100 years. So let's just kind of build, cheaply, efficiently, eco in a way that makes sense today to have a lifespan of 30, 50 years. Then almost in a mandatory way, scrape that, redo it. And I think there's maybe some interesting takeaways from that kind of mindset as well. Because I think like you get in this mindset of build it and have it last forever, and then you end up with a bunch of old shit that maybe isn't even as good as the low end new stuff, right? So it's almost like is it better to build it, wipe it in 50 years, and you're gonna have the new technology?
Yeah, for me, I would agree with Travis. Like, if you look at sports stadiums, like in Atlanta, where I'm from, we had the Georgia Dome, which was really nice, but they built the Mercedes Benz Dome, and it looks crazy. When you see it, it looks like a giant spaceship landed. I mean, it's freaking the design of that thing is crazy, and you could say the height of buildings nowadays. In Saudi Arabia, what the Burj Khalifa? I don't know if that's in Saudi Arabia, and then I don't know how that thing, the line. Y'all know the line in Saudi Arabia, where it's like a town that's like in a line.
Yeah, that
basically.
shit's
still
never going
building
to get
that?
built, though.
I think it's
are
like
they?
a plan. I don't know how much has been built, but
It's
Yeah,
concept at best.
They started
yeah.
breaking ground, that's for sure. But I don't know if they.
It looks like a cool concept, but also looks like one of those concepts that might not work out. But I would agree with Travis, like the like the sports stadiums and stuff, and but
Well, so how do you do that? Like, obviously, every home can't be built with the precision, quality, cost of an arena, right? So, like, if you're
right,
trying to problem solve for affordable housing, and then contrast that with, pride of building, like, how do you square that
yeah.
circle?
I mean, and I have to say, for me, as a moral well-being, yes, that's what I care about. You know, first, and it's not that there isn't anything to be said about having pride in the way your community looks and things like that. We're really talking about aesthetic appeal here, because it's just demonstrably the case by nearly all, well, I would say by all well-being standard categories like physical, mental, and social health. Housing has improved for the reasons of technological implementation, like Jared was talking about. So there is the well-being, but then some people are going to say, well, can't we have this new technology that incorporates um, uh, interesting architecture that gives some original identity that is in some way connected to, let's say, Americana, or at some kind of distinct cultural identity, so we don't have like row houses, or we got 100 houses in this community and they're all the same with the same matte gray paint on them. So there is something to be said about like wanting to live amongst interesting homes, but those neighborhoods do exist. Like, we have them in Canada. I lived in one before I moved to Mexico, where every house like had its own distinct identity on this street we lived on, and they were really cool to look at when you walked by, or when I'd be with my son in the stroller going out for a walk or something. And yeah, so I think these pockets do exist, but there's also going to be these more affordable home pockets that it would just cost a whole lot of seemingly unnecessary resources to
If I could interject at some point,
purely for purely for aesthetic reasons, where what people are mostly concerned about is trying to find affordable housing. But I do think that it is one of those things that the more you're willing to pay, or the more resources available, the more you can get more artistic and aesthetically pleasing with the kind of designs you create, or like what the original hot take was, something that you can have some pride in.
The most, and by pride too, I don't mean pride in the homeowner necessarily. I mean pride in the people doing the construction, the people who are actually performing the work. I actually would prefer, and it's a concept that I have of like a quarter-acre lot, 500 square foot tiny homes for people who need affordable housing, but generally don't do much at home outside of that. And I mean, so I'm just more speaking of the quality of the work, not necessarily the uniqueness or the
Yep.
flashiness or how big the house is. I'm more just concerned about having a structure that is sound and will, not burn resources in the future because it has to be redone.
I mean,
I've had a similar
yeah, go
thought
ahead.
of even like
And I'm
shared
sorry,
spaces.
the scrapping, the concept from Japan that you were talking about, Jared. I like that can still be done with this. It's just you have strong bones. That's all I'm saying. Like houses should
Yeah,
have good bones.
I almost think the shared spaces, obviously looking back on your childhood, my childhood, you kind of have this nostalgic kind of mindset. But I don't know if you guys have walked in a McDonald's. Like, I probably haven't been in a McDonald's in 20 years. And I had this
That's a
idea.
great example. That's
I
a
had
great
this idea
example.
recently of I took my daughter who's 2 years old to McDonald's, and I'm like, this is going to be fun. Like when I was a kid, taking her into McDonald's, and we're going to go to a playscape, and there's going to be kids everywhere, and it's going to be like it was for me, in the '90s and McDonald's. It was the farthest from that experience that I've ever had. It was cold. It was sterile. You order from a machine. There's no playscape. It was almost like I was in Germany in the 80s kind of experience. It was really surreal for me. And I feel like I connect and resonate with what you're saying in that aspect of like these shared spaces where there could really be improvement there.
Yeah, they took away the playscapes for whatever reason, and they I watched a video on it, but long story short, they saw more money in not making it like a family friendly place, and to like get customers in and out quicker, type of a thing. So McDonald's is actually a really good like case study on that.
My opinion on that, though, is that it's all profit driven. Like ultimately, it's to increase profits
That's
for the company, and so they want to scrap that. And I think like really most of the problems that we have in American society is because everything is too profit driven, and fucking corporations are ripping us all off of joy and everything else in our livelihood. But yeah, that's my take.
Hey, Travis. I live in a mostly Hispanic. Hush. I live in a mostly Hispanic neighborhood, and I've noticed not all, but I have a couple of neighbors that really like take care of their yard. Like like my neighbor, catty corner to me, like he sort of like built uh like a fence, but it wasn't a fence, it was just a bunch of tree stumps, and he built like a earth staircase, like he dug it out himself, and like he totally changed his front yard, which was just a generic hill with grass and dirt on it, into like a really cool thing. Do you find that they take more pride in their yard and like decorate it that way, or
Um, it
it,
depends. I think it's a mixed bag, like anywhere else. Like here in
yeah,
Oaxaca, where I live,
and other
some
people do it
communities,
too, but
some communities are really impoverished. Like they don't have the resources to really do anything
yeah,
interesting with their yard, because like when it comes to landscaping, usually you do need resources of
yeah,
some kind, like depending on what kind of land you have. If you have some trees on the land, you can do something with the trees and
yeah,
whatnot. But yeah, in some homes where people have a little bit more money, yeah, the landscaping projects like
yeah,
um are beautiful, and the tile work and the kind of gravel they use, um
yeah,
like cobblestone pathways and things like that. You see a lot of that kind of
yeah,
implementation. Green areas. Where I live is like insanely green here. So there's
yeah,
it's mostly sunny all year round. There's the rainy season consists of days that are mostly sunny, where you get like for an hour you'll get a dump of rain during the rainy season, a few times per
yeah.
week, but that only lasts like maybe a month.
Nice.
And so yeah, like people have
Sounds nice.
huge gardens, and they grow a lot of fruit and vegetables, a lot of banana plants here. I have
Banana plant.
I have 8 banana plants outside
Yeah,
that all have fruit on them right now. So whenever we need more bananas, I take the machete out and chop them down and hang the bananas up, and it takes them like, maybe like 2 days to ripen once they're disconnected from the plant. So yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, there's a lot of people are to some degree, the people who have a little bit of money to and time to do it. That's another thing. Like a
yeah,
lot of people around here are working 2 full-time jobs. Like
yeah. I'll say this guy might have been, because I live in a pretty cheap community. Like I live in a trailer park, and I guess maybe his own. He was a different type of cat because I don't know where he got the stumps from, but it seemed like everything he did, like uh, it wasn't like he spent a lot of money on it, like, and he did it all himself. It was really impressive. It was really impressive.
Yeah, that's
But
cool. And
I was just wondering
I
if
love
you
that stuff.
noticed that. But I was gonna say
A
like
lot of farmland, I should add too. Like a lot of people's properties around where I live,
yeah,
like there's a lot of farmland as well, where they're literally, harvesting off their land as part of their family income. So yeah, and
true.
space to
I,
raise animals, goats mainly, and sometimes cattle.
I was gonna say real quick, like if you think about the Sistine Chapel, right? Like
Yeah, I've been.
that is, yeah. I can't imagine what it looks like in real life because on just looking at it on a picture, it's amazing.
I found
Because
it
a lot of
hard to
people think
breathe when I was touring through. I found it really hard to breathe in there. Like the air, the amount of, first of all, they funnel through so many people at the same time. And you're in these
yeah,
buildings that really don't have like good ventilation in them.
really,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, yeah, I remember feeling like I was going to have a panic attack when I was in there, but I still enjoyed it.
Damn,
Like also
that's tough.
some of the like sculpted pieces in there are way bigger than you expect them to be, like way bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But as far as that, like there's no. What am I trying to say here? That the them commissioning Michelangelo to paint that is like purely like a labor of love and dedication, like trying to impress God, basically, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
uh and
Oh, we could have
I
that
don't
print. We could have
know.
that printed with AI in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, now we could. Yeah, yeah. But
I'm just trying to piss
I
off
don't
the
know.
anti-AI religion that almost certainly does exist.
The
No, they got
anti-AI religion. What?
Oh, I said the AR took your Jews.
The AI are
Hey,
taking over our souls.
hey, the AI are troll demons,
All right, I want to
and
pass
I
the.
mean that.
I mean that literally. I want to pass
I
it.
mean that in a technical sense. In the final analysis.
Yeah, I want to pass the mic to Arcion. Arcion says he has a hot take.
Yeah, I have two potential hot takes. Whichever one you like more, just let me know. The first one is I think that gun training, not gun ownership, but gun training should be mandatory in schools, like in high schools. Now
Gun.
that's
Okay.
and the second one is I think Americana is dying, and I think it needs to be revived.
Dying.
You
Yes,
said Americana?
yes. I
Oh,
Okay.
define
Americana is
Americana
dying.
as
Okay. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, not like America's dying. They took away our Christmas. Not like that clickbait Fox News. I mean, like as in like the concept of Americana, which I define as like the cultural identity of America of the United States specifically.
Right. Okay.
So
Well,
whichever one you like.
any
Wow.
responses on the mandatory gun safety education first?
Well, if any, I guess, real quick on the gun one, I would favor like with airsoft guns or maybe guns with blanks. You would have to be real careful with it. I wouldn't want to give a kid a gun, even though I do think kids 14 to 18 are a lot more, a lot more common sense, and are a lot more capable than people give them credit for. But still, like maybe airsoft gun or guns with blanks, like I said, because getting a lot of law passed where it's like literally a loaded gun, taking them to a gun range, that might be tough. But maybe if they qualify into a specific group. But and what was the second one? Oh, Americana. I don't really have an opinion on that. I had
Well,
to think
let's
about that, but
let's
yeah,
deal with the gun one first. I can see
yeah,
some like if you want to have the kind of gun culture you have in the United States generally, I can see why someone would want to make that kind of training mandatory because guns are everywhere, and the idea of starting safety training kind of like you start training on a bicycle when kids are ready, and bicycles are very dangerous, and you're potentially having to you have to teach about oncoming traffic and all of those dangers related to bicycles. um Obviously, I am, for people that know me, I am probably more anti-gun culture, or gun cult as I like to say it, than anyone. um but one thing I often do say, if I lived in the United States, like if I was forced to live there, because it seems like I would have to be forced to live in the United States, because uh, I don't like the country in general. Um, but I
damn, that's the hot take,
and
dude.
you have to and you have to understand, like, I'm coming from growing up in Canada, which is a far superior country. It is hot take night, by the way, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I know. I know. You're not
and
allowed to
and now I'm
choose
living
now.
and then now I'm living in Mexico, which is a country that generally
Mexico's just
understands, like, how to love and care for children in the home and things like this much better than a lot of countries north of it. So there's a few hot takes baked in there, but I will say that just to continue, if I was forced to live in the United States, I almost certainly, I mean, depending on where, right? There are areas where I wouldn't feel like I would, need to get a firearm, or become more well versed in how to use a firearm. I mean, I grew up hunting in a hunting family. I know how to shoot rifles. Um, we used to shoot grouse, squirrels, deer, elk. Uh, I don't think anyone in my family ever got a moose.
well, okay. You're
Um,
not a real Canadian now. You're Canadian, and your passport is revoked.
yeah, I don't have a moose rack on my hanging on my wall, so I can't really qualify as a full Canadian. But I think it's more beaver pelt. Actually, you got to have the beaver pelt. But
Oh
like,
yeah.
Do you have a jean
so
jacket
I
and
would feel,
jeans?
yeah, I got the Canadian tuxedo, of course, somewhere. I'm sure I have one.
Nice,
But
nice.
Jacket.
I think, like, I would see good reason, if I lived in many parts of the United States, to make sure my children had some kind of education with regards to guns, if we were in an area where I would think that when they were at the appropriate age, that it might be reasonable for them to have a firearm. This is what I'm telling you right now is a horror story scenario in my mind. Like, if I had to live in the United States of Afghanistan, like, I would feel like I would maybe have to put guns in the hands of my children, of course when they're adults or whatever, or I might promote it as a way of being safe. But
Yeah.
so yeah, like, in cases like that, I could see gun education being a good thing. Should it be mandatory? Like, I believe sex education should be mandatory, in the sense that, like, all children should have access to sex education, because almost all sexual abuse of children happens in the home. So there needs to be some way for children to get educated on stuff like this outside the home. and schools generally are well equipped to do that. So like I can look at that kind of issue through this lens as well. So I can see some like, yeah, you want to start just like how riding a bike can be very dangerous. That's why we put on protective equipment. But the protective equipment will do fuck all against the real danger out there, which is really an oncoming vehicle. Like the protective equipment can do a little bit, but that's the thing that kills people. And we're talking about teaching children things here. So some things I would want to consider here. So making gun instruction in schools mandatory carries some real dangers, but it depends on what gun teaching means. Here are a few principal dangers I've found based on what my Pangburn AI system has pumped out based on my virtues and maxims. Because I've never thought about mandatory teaching of children before. So it can create a false sense of security. Children can remember safety rules without reliably following them when they encounter an actual gun. 2019 systematic review concluded that conventional gun safety programs generally did not prevent children from handling firearms when unsupervised. A newer randomized trial found that a 1-minute safety video did significantly improve behavior among children aged 8 to 12, but the remaining risk was still considerable. 39.3% of children who watched the gun safety video touched the gun. 8.9% pulled the trigger. Only 33.9% reported the gun to an adult. So education can reduce danger without making children dependable safety barriers. Number two, it can shift responsibility from adults to children. The central responsibility should remain with adults who own, store, and control firearms. A mandatory school program could allow parents or lawmakers to say, the children were taught what to do rather than requiring guns to be inaccessible. CDC data on 1,262 unintentional firearm deaths among American children found that guns involved were commonly loaded 74% of the time, unlocked 76% of the time, and being played with or shown to someone when fired 67% of the time. The most powerful intervention is therefore preventing access through locked, unloaded storage, not trusting children to control their curiosity perfectly. Number three, hands-on instruction introduces direct physical risk. Bringing real firearms, ammunition, or realistic replicas into the educational environment creates risks. That is, if this was the way this training would be implemented, that do not exist in an ordinary classroom. Obviously, incorrectly cleared weapons, ammunition accidentally entering the training area, negligent discharge, theft or unauthorized access, students imitating procedures outside supervised settings, confusion between real guns, disabled guns, and replicas. These dangers become much greater when instruction involves loading, aiming, or firing rather than simple avoidance education. Current state programs generally avoid real guns, although Arkansas permits parents to choose certain off-campus alternatives that may involve live firearms. Number four, and I have 9 of these total, so we'll get through them. It may normalize guns or stimulate curiosity. Gun education does not necessarily glorify firearms. Properly designed safety instructions can emphasize that guns are dangerous tools rather than toys. Nevertheless, repeated mandatory exposure, particularly hands-on training, could make guns appear ordinary, socially approved, or attractive to some students. The 2023 randomized trial found that greater pre-existing interest in guns and more positive attitudes towards guns were associated with more dangerous behavior around the firearms used in the experiment. This does not prove that safety courses produce gun interest, but it shows why the framing of instruction matters. The program saying, quote, never touch, leave, and tell an adult presents a different psychological message from a program that teaches children to aim accurately, for example. Number 5, it can be developmentally inappropriate. A single mandatory curriculum cannot reasonably treat a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 17-year-old as equivalent. Young children may be able to repeat instructions but lack the impulse control, risk comprehension, and behavioral consistency required in a real encounter. Programs must therefore be assessed by demonstrated behavior, not merely whether children pass a quiz or recite the rules. It may distress or re-traumatize students. Some children have experienced shootings, domestic violence, suicide, neighborhood gunfire, or the firearm death of a family member. Mandatory instruction involving firearms, images, demonstrations, or simulations could trigger fear, grief, or traumatic memories. The curriculum can become ideological. Quote, gun education can quietly incorporate controversial political and moral assumptions, like guns are inherently empowering, guns are primarily defensive tools, gun ownership is a civic virtue, guns are inherently immoral, armed self-defense should be encouraged, police or military firearm culture should be emulated. Number 8, yeah, I got two more quick, and then we can go through whichever ones you want to touch. Unequal implementation could produce unequal safety, so well-funded schools may use trained instructors, carefully vetted materials, counselors, and behavioral evaluation. Poorer districts may receive a short video or improvised lessons from teachers without specialized preparation. And then finally, number 9, it consumes limited instructional resources. Mandatory teaching means less time and money for something else: first aid, mental health services, conflict resolution, literacy, physical education, or secure storage outreach to parents. The relevant question is not merely whether gun instruction provides some benefit, but whether it provides greater benefit than alternative uses of those educational resources. So yeah, some things to consider there, but go ahead, Arsian.
Okay, and here's why. Here's why everything you said it is wrong, and I'm going to prove it in 5 seconds. No, I'm kidding. Okay, let me give you a serious answer. So let's just remember this: the Constitution of the United States gives permission to American citizens to own and carry arms. Like, now, a lot of people will go back and forth about like the whole, like, does this clause mean this clause? But the way most courts have interpreted is that you have the right to bear arms. And there are some states that have more restrictions on it, but a lot of people would go after that and say like, oh, like a lot of them are like breaking the Constitution. But as it stands now, in all 50 states, there is some level of gun ownership that most citizens can obtain if they're law-abiding, for the most part. If we're going to have a country that allows that, we need to be realistic about what we're allowing. Like, for instance, like you wouldn't have to, like, we look at laws about things like alcohol. Alcohol is allowed in the United States. There are some countries around the world that completely ban it. So they don't need to teach anyone or educate their populace about alcohol, because the punishment is like 100%. You cannot consume it anywhere. So in a country like the United States, because we have something in like firearms, it would make sense that we would want people to assume responsibility with their rights. I am someone who believes very strongly, and I'm sure, Travis, you probably agree with me on this, every right is a right that requires you to be responsible for that right. And you can't, and if you can't handle a right, you shouldn't have it, and you can't be responsible for it.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, if you mean like if you're born into the United States, for example, and you have the right to bear arms, it's perfectly reasonable for someone to reject that and say this is retarded. We should not have the right to bear arms. Like, you know, like they could just disagree with that right. You know,
that's fine. You can reject that. You can reject it. But the thing is, that's just you choosing not to exercise something that the law allows. But if you ever change your mind, why wouldn't you believe if that what follows is that your exercising of said right requires your belief that you were responsible for the result of exercising that right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I just needed to clarify if you thought that meant like if you are awarded a right into the country you're born into, then you should feel, you know, somehow somewhat obligated to embody that right. I was making sure
No,
that's not what you were saying.
yeah, that's definitely not what I'm saying. Because there are plenty of rights that we can, almost every right you have is something you can choose not to exercise. You have freedom of speech. You can choose not to use it. You have freedom of religion. You can be an atheist. You can literally do whatever you want. And as you could, well, not literally anything you want, but you know what I mean. You
Yeah.
can choose not to exercise any right that you have. My issue is that I look at places like Switzerland. Switzerland also has an extremely high rate of gun ownership and gun usage. They have only had, from what I remember, at least up to today, knock on wood, one mass shooting in their history. Last time I checked,
Right.
and the thing is, the Swiss attitude towards guns is heavily zoned on the idea of responsibility. They believe that, that those who have guns need to be responsible with them, and I totally, actually, completely agree with that. I will also say a lot of the points you brought up, like from your Pangburn, AI. I don't entirely disagree with them. I just think that they're negated by the fact that we have guns in the first place. We could get into a whole argument as to whether or not guns should be allowed in the first place. But if we're starting with the premise that they're going to be, for instance, we have to then acknowledge that a lot of the things that could go wrong with potential gun education could happen even without gun education. The only difference, the people who are more responsible with guns are probably going to be more likely to take away better lessons from them.
Yeah, but don't you see like the first point, based on like these randomized trials that have been ran with regards to children aged 8 to 12, the results were quite terrifying with regards to how the children were interacting with uh a gun in the room, and the gun safety video that says you know don't you don't touch the gun, you tell an adult. And then we have like almost 40% of the children who watch the gun safety video touch the gun. 9% of them pulled the trigger, and only 33 or 34% of them reported the gun to an adult like they were supposed to. So pretty overwhelming minority did the right thing. So the question is, if you're going to have, well, so they did this a randomized trial with a 1-minute safety video, where the safety video tells the children that, if you see a gun, you don't touch the gun, and you report the gun to an adult. And there was a test ran with this with how many children was it? I'll have to pull this up. It doesn't tell me in this quick summary how many children it was, but
I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that all
40,
education is for you.
So but the main point is that, like, is there, do you see any problems with normalizing guns around children?
I do, if it's at a particular age, because I think the younger you go, the less we believe someone can be responsible for things. Like, we allow teenagers to drive cars, but the thing is that we don't allow 12-year-olds to drive cars. We don't allow 8-year-olds to drive cars. We allow, and it's not just because of the size of their body. There are 12-year-olds that go through a large growth spurt when they're 12, and when they turn 13, they're the size of like a 17-year-old. It has to do with their brain development and their likelihood of impulse control. I think most people would say that would disagree with you if you suddenly said to Travis, we shouldn't allow 16-year-olds to drive, because we think that's probably an appropriate age. So I don't think it's appropriate to normalize guns.
But the gun,
I think it's children. I think it depends on the age.
Yeah, the comparison to the vehicle, though, doesn't work, and this is well studied in psychology that, like, when people try to make this comparison, it's like they treating a vehicle like a deadly weapon, like a gun is. With a vehicle, in most cases, in order to do something deadly with the vehicle, you are going to put yourself in great danger. And that's not necessarily the case. That's not necessarily the case with a gun. So so even if you run people over, that puts you in danger. But in the more common case that people are thinking about is when you get onto the road out on the highway with other vehicles causing an accident, right? 16-year-olds, just like any other age group in general, do not want to die or put themselves at risk of dying. So that's why, like, when people try to use that comparison, it kind of falls flat when you look at the most important distinction, which is that the gun itself, when you use the gun against someone else, or you're pointing the gun somewhere else, you know it's not being pointed back at you. So there is a major psychological difference between those two.
I will give you the pointing. I will give you the pointing parts, but guns are also simpler to operate by a lot. Like it's pretty it's pretty easy for someone to understand and how to use a firearm compared to a vehicle. Vehicles are more complicated. They involve more gross motor skills, and more parts of your body. So I think it's easier to teach people something like gun safety. And again, and I go back to my original premise that if they're going to be available to the public needs to be educated on this. And I'd like that to happen before they become a legal adult who's able to own one. Like, and the way they could be taught could be all different. You could have it where, like, early gun safety could be to teach people to get an adult. But later gun safety could be actually understanding the basic rules of operating one. Like, for instance, never point it at anything you're not willing to immediately kill or destroy. How to properly store a weapon, stuff like that. Like,
right, yeah, like I said earlier, like, if this is the kind of culture people want to build and live in, and these are going to be people who are coming of age to be going out into a culture where, you know, there's a really good chance, just like driving and whatnot, there's a really good chance that, or we could even say dating, like, you know, in like dating education and things like that. I can see that there's good reason, if young people are going to be going out and having experiences and using different tools, and some of those tools being deadly, if there's a high enough chance that they're going to be engaging with that thing, then it would make sense to have that have good amounts of education towards that thing. But like that final point was, you know, do I think it's a better use of education time to be dedicating these particular resources towards, like, more music education, more extracurricular activities that are, you know, going to serve other more common educational purposes? You know, you can look at mechanics, you can look at physical education, you can look at theater, you can look at music, you can look at, like, so what is going to be kind of bumped out of the way to make way for this firearm education? And, you know, I think it would have to be implemented in an area where it's just very common for a young person, once they are able to own a firearm, they're probably going to own a firearm. But I'm not sure, much like driving a vehicle, I'm not sure that that schools are the right place to be doing this. It might be more about, like, a better argument might be there should be gun, you know, education centers, and maybe there already are for young people, and we don't need to be, you know, I mean, we don't need to be spending time on this when school is really about STEM study and team sports and all of these other things, you know.
That might be a decent argument. I could see us using a third party. I still think it should be mandatory. I just think that it's like, I wouldn't have a problem with the idea of saying like, you're going to go somewhere else to do this outside of school. But I think it should be something that you would have to get a special exemption from in order to keep going through school.
Yeah, I don't see the
And-
mandatory. I don't see the mandatory thing. Honestly, like the more I think about this, I see there. I mean, you have to like understand like the freedoms in the United States, like what aspects of education are mandatory, like in order to graduate, right? Like we got the math, histories, sciences. So a lot of the STEM things in order to get your graduation credits, the amount. So it sounds like you're arguing that this needs to be mandatory would mean that basically. And I think, I'm not saying you're insane, but I think that's an insane idea.
Yeah. Well, like if not mandatory, then extremely common.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make the argument that the school is going to offer, like when I was going to high school, the police would come for anyone that was interested in doing some like police training days to see how police train. And this is for like grade 11 and 12 students who might be interested in having a career in law enforcement. So like the police would do these like police days where you would go and like, or even like it wasn't just police. I think it was emergency services where they would do simulations of like, how to deal with a, someone who just, stole something from a store and how they go about apprehending that person or dealing with like, first on the scene at a bad car accident. Like they would do this kind of stuff, and they didn't do like gun training or anything, but they would talk about like firearm usage and like kids would have the opportunity to get tased if they wanted. Like that was actually part of the thing. I think it was like on the smallest level, but kids would like get tased, and it was part of like just the fun aspect of the training program. So like that kind of stuff, so long as like if something like that is offered and people have the opportunity to pursue that if they're interested in it, and especially when we're considering like the gun culture in the United States, and some states and some cities would be much more gun focused or gun normalized. Like I could see for there to like I'm sure these programs must exist where like people come through the schools and like if you want to learn about guns, if you want to learn to how to shoot guns and be a responsible gun owner, you can sign up for the gun thing. We do need your parental your parents' consent to sign the consent form, and then you're allowed to do this like 2-day program or whatever. Like I'm not opposed to things like that if there's good educational value. There's practical reasons as to why this program would be offered. I just think making it mandatory would be a huge mistake, and probably like the opening up the biggest slippery slope floodgate you could ever imagine, because like there are so many more things that I think are more important to be made mandatory, like theater, for example. One of the best ways to build confidence, character, appreciation, social health, and people's ability to build more social health is by practicing and learning how to coexist in a theater environment. So like there are things that I'm going there are things that I'm going to like put way ahead for every kid than trying to make something like that mandatory. But
Honestly, I think sports probably do a lot better job of that than theater, but that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah.
But like I don't want to take up too much time, but I will say this, Travis. I I still lean much more towards mandatory, but if it wasn't mandatory, having it be something that's just kind of like a very common thing to the point where a part where it's like kind of unspoken that you just do this and it's not forced on you,
Yeah.
but like it's just something that almost everybody does might be good. But the biggest reason why is because I also here's another reason, and you might not agree with this, but I feel like people who wants to make laws about guns shouldn't be allowed to make them if they don't understand them.
Yeah.
And a lot of
I
people who
mean,
get into high school will go on to be senators and politicians. And I don't like the idea that somebody who literally thinks that like adding a grip to a rifle makes it that much more dangerous should be making laws about anything involving guns.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sentiment you have is pretty anti-democratic, to be honest. In a democracy, like you're going to have all kinds of leaders who have their own opinions about guns, and you might think their opinions are wrong, or they're trying to like change the category of how to understand guns, but based on your understanding and training, you think they're incorrect, or like let's say the academics on guns would disagree with these senators, but that doesn't mean that like people are going to not want to empower those people to have a say on guns because they like what they're saying about guns. I think that's a really important part of democracy.
I don't think it should be law. I don't think it should be a law that you have to understand guns in order to vote on them. I'm saying I just think that we shouldn't take people seriously who don't know much about guns that are trying to make gun legislation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I kind of have the same answer to that, where it's like a politician might come up and be like, you know what the best thing is about a gun? When it's never fucking used. You know, if a politician is up there like saying stuff like that, someone who's like a gun enthusiast who likes to shoot guns and whatnot might be like, this guy's missing the fucking message. He obviously doesn't know shit about guns. But there are going to be people who really love that messaging, and they're going to be like, yes, we need less guns being fired in this country. And then someone will say like they're missing the whole point of owning a gun. It's like you don't have a gun primarily to shoot other people or to like or shoot in ways in general that are dangerous. And he seems to be presupposing that like, you know, every time a gun is shot, that's a bad thing or a dangerous thing. And then yeah, a lot of people will also believe that. But I'm not, but I personally don't think they shouldn't have a say. It's just I think that's just part of the war of ideas, where people who think they're better educated, like you do, should use their voice and argue against their, you know, illiterate or low resolution positions, right?
I don't think we disagree here. I think we're kind of talking past each other a little bit, because when I say don't take someone seriously, I'm not saying they should be prevented from speaking. I'm saying the average person should look at them and what kind of side-eyed, like, wait, did this guy just say X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but I think when you say people shouldn't take that seriously, you're making a general statement about people, and it is kind of tied to, like you mentioned, to senators. So we're talking about the people. So I'm like, I'm what I'm trying to respond with is saying that if the people, you know, feel that kind of messaging is something they want to hear, like they should examine, you know, their purpose hierarchy and see what purposes that those statements are serving, as opposed to the other services, other statements being made that you would think are more accurate and palatable. I'm just saying that like they should do that. They should listen to those people if it is in fact serving their purposes. That would be the rational thing to do. But you're saying they shouldn't listen to them because they're not authorities on guns. They don't know what they're talking about. but those people you're talking to don't give a shit about that. So what they give a shit about is serving their purposes rationally. So you could so you wouldn't be able to point to like the irrationality there, but you would have to attack the purpose itself. You would have to say that whatever purpose is at play with regards to what the senator is saying, by your opinion, incorrectly about guns, like that needs to be, that's where I think the key to the war of ideas would be to be fought. I don't think it's, I don't think it's going to get you anywhere to say like those people shouldn't be listened to. You know what I mean? But
I guess so. I can kind of see.
I know
can
you're
kinda
not
see what you
saying.
mean.
Yeah, I know you're not saying like if they say something wrong about guns, they should have their free speech taken away or anything like that. I know you're not saying that.
Yeah. And so I think we kind of agree on a lot here, more
Yeah.
than we disagree. At least in the idea. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning. I think you agree with me on this, that any right that you have that you choose to exercise, you must assume responsibility for the results of exercising that right.
Yeah, when you add the caveat, what those rights you choose to exercise, yes, those should be done responsibly. Yeah, and within the confines of the law of the land, because I am really big on law abiding and going about changing laws that you don't like. You go about that democratically. Just for me as a moral well-beingist, I see so much well-being detriment that befalls democracies when people go the other route and try to take the law into their own hands.
Right. And I will say this to end this, because I do gotta get going because I gotta call somebody. I will say this. I think that we should also study Switzerland a little bit more when it comes to the whole gun and debates, because, like I said, last time I checked, you can look this up, Travis, if you want. They've only had one mass shooting, but they've had guns just as long as we have, and they have quite a percentage of ownership in their country. So they're clearly doing something better than we are.
Yeah, I think it's worth studying. I mean, I think the United States should be trying to move towards policies and practices that start mitigating the opportunity for mass shooting, and a lot of it has to do with understanding the mass shooters, and this gets me talking a lot about the implementation of, and I know you have to go, so feel free to bounce out whenever we'll move on to a new hot take for today. But it gets me talking about which is going to be the topic of my second book once my first book is out this fall, that philosophy and the implementation of philosophy should be taken seriously enough for there to be a branch of philosophy in government, and they would be responsible for implementing philosophical outreach and inspiration in communities all throughout the country. And this would look like community size, city size activations of conversation festivals, things where people are encouraged to, in a healthy way, in a good faith, helpful way, express themselves, talk about things like violence, and not only implementing that out in the community, but helping to implement that in the home. It is my opinion, with regards to the school shooting issue, that if the conversation culture from the home all the way up to the top of the state was that of a good faith, helpful nature, that was ultimately seeking to maximize well-being, physical, mental, and social health for oneself and those around them, that things like school shootings, things like rape in the home, many of these things are going to go the way of the dodo. because the information starts being shared. It starts being cultivated in that intersubjective space. And in that intersubjective space is where the war of ideas happens. So for example, we have good testimonial evidence, good reason to believe that almost all school shooters that ended up not being school shooters were deterred by becoming school shooters by way of the dialectic, one way or another, be it conversation with their friends, their family, online chat boards, a teacher about something. Not that it's a direct conversation about should I shoot up the school or not. It's not like that. It's more just about like, I am having violent thoughts, and the state of the country right now is causing me to want to do something really violent. And like having a kind of renaissance reimagining of the conversation and how it plays out in society, and giving your people incentives to be promoting and engaging in the good faith helpful dialectic with their neighbors, their brothers, their sisters, their aunts, their neighbors, everyone. I think it's a real hole. People look at like what is missing, where people talk about the meaning crisis, all of this other stuff, but what is missing in society that's leaving many people feeling like kind of unguided wanderers in many aspects of their life. I really think philosophy is missing in people's life, and that doesn't mean academic philosophy. It just means the the art of intelligent conceptual organization, the art of the dialectic, the art of maximizing the potential, the well-being potential of communication, something that we do and we can't escape from, not just with others, but also internally with ourselves. So I am, before I leave this planet, before my time is up, I hope that I will have made strong enough arguments in that direction and fought for strong enough change in that direction, where we might see a branch of philosophy in government being given a small budget to really make a difference by way of improving the communication virtue across whatever country. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you around, Travis.
Yeah, thanks, Arsian. All right, it is hot take night, and so
did Arsian leave?
Arsian left. He had to go make a call, but Perry, catch me up. What's been going on in the chat? You and Trey, or Trey can. You guys are going back and forth. What are you guys talking about?
Nothing on topic. Arsian made a comment about like choosing atheism, like having the freedom to choose. Like, you don't choose atheism, and I think Trey found that mind blowing. So we were going to,
did that blow your mind, Trey?
Well, no. I mean, I asked him if you don't choose it, or how do you know you don't choose it, or how do you know you can't choose something? And then he says that he needs to be convinced, or he can't convince himself of something he's not currently convinced of. So then I asked him, well, somebody must have convinced you of that, because you needed to be convinced of it, because you can't if you can't convince yourself of what you just said, then somebody had to have convinced you. So that's
or
basically
something. Someone or something doesn't have to be someone, but
something. What do you mean a thing?
You ever seen Apple fall to the ground?
Okay, so something physical
well, yeah,
convinced you of that
physical,
belief.
A thing. It can be a thought, can be an experience. anything within the purview of experience you can conceptualize as a thing. But yeah, I mean, Perry is right that so belief, which atheism has to do with by many conceptualizations and usages of atheism. A lot of people are saying that it is to mean a lack of belief in the proposition that gods exist. That's the kind of the pop version. The more academic version of atheism is more the Gnostic atheist position, and that is that you are taking a positive stance that there are no gods. But with regards to cognitive science, what Perry's saying is true, is that phenomena, that thing we call belief, which is that binary switch, you're either in a state of acceptance of the proposition or not. So let's say the proposition is God exists. You either accept that proposition or you don't. There is no middle ground. Even if you say, oh, I don't know if I accept that proposition, you haven't accepted the proposition. You're still in that state of not accepting the proposition. So it's a binary. And here is the thing. Here's the test, Trey, that is at the foundations of why this is well known in mind and brain science, is that try to believe that there is actually a pink elephant in the room with you right now. Try to believe that. You can profess it. You can say, okay, yeah, now I believe there's a pink, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about whether you actually truly believe it or not. And I would suggest to you, based on everything we know about cognitive science, that you can't just will yourself to believe that. You need to have some kind of reason that you would consider good reason to believe that there's a pink elephant in the room with you right now. Does that make sense?
So how, what you just said, you chose to believe that or you did not?
Chose to like about cognitive science.
What you just, the whole thing. You started out by
everything
saying
I talked about there.
Yeah.
I did not choose to. No. I did not choose to believe it. I accepted it based on what I believe to be good reasons, and what I believe to be good reasons are also beliefs. Those came to me some way or another, where I learned it from. Yeah, go ahead, Perry.
Is that really what you got out of what Trev just said there?
Yeah, because I do want you to deal with the pink.
He cut me off.
I did? Oh.
Yeah,
I thought you asked me a question.
Out.
Oh, I thought you I think you started with a question, but sorry.
Yeah, your question was you chose to believe that.
Yes. So you accepted that belief based on reasons. Right, Travis?
The beliefs, everything can be tracked to, like, if someone wants to say, like, why have you accepted this proposition? We can find those reasons. Yes, there are reasons. Yeah. Justifications, we would call them.
Well, we're guided by our sentiment, right? Not everything's through reason.
Niv, those things are not separate.
If you accept something.
Yeah.
If you accept something, that's not a decision. That's not a choice.
I'm not saying there isn't choice. Well, so that's where the issue is. So, when there's a proposition like let's go back to the pink elephant thing, right? So, do you think you can just choose to believe that there is a pink elephant in the room? Can you make that choice?
While being honest.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture what you're, so like, can I tell myself in my head that there's a pink elephant in the room?
No.
And also like, quote unquote, know that there's a pink elephant in the room?
No. We're just talking about belief. Do you believe that God exists, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you believe that proposition. God exists. You believe that proposition. You believe it, right? Do you believe that apples exist?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you believe that I have 2 children?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe that there is a pink elephant floating around in the room with you right now?
No.
Okay. Yeah. And I would say you don't believe that because you have not been convinced. The other things you've been convinced of, like you would present your good reasons. You would say, well, I find, hopefully you would say, I find Travis to be a trustworthy guy. I think I've maybe even seen his kids on film, and he said he has 2 kids and he just had his second kid. So I trust him. I find that as a good reason to believe. You're going to cite your good reasons for believing in God as well. And your good reasons for believing that apples exist. But I would say when you try to do that sorting and try to find those good reasons to believe that there's a pink elephant floating around the room with you right now, you don't have those good reasons, at least yet. However, what would be crazy is that if all of a sudden you turned around and took one more look and there's a big fat pink elephant like staring at you, then you're going to be like, holy fucking shit, there is a pink elephant in the room right now. So by way of your sensory experience, then you would have had good fucking reason to believe that. But
Travis,
yeah,
why would I need to be convinced that there is not a pink elephant in the room though?
I didn't say not a pink elephant. I think you switched the bird in there. So like the proposition, if the proposition was there is not a pink elephant in the room right now, you believe that, right?
I do believe that, and I don't need to be convinced of it, though. I guess I just see that there is
You are
no
convinced
pink
if you believe.
Well, see, I would think you're convinced by way of all the experiences you've had in your life, Trey, that like if someone was to say with me right now, Travis, in the other room there is a ghost. Do you believe that proposition? No. But you didn't even take a look in the other room. I don't need to. Ghosts don't exist. I know ghosts don't exist. I don't have to go and look in the other room. I think you know that too. But I certainly, or I should say, I almost certainly believe that ghosts don't exist.
Yeah.
So I think like the reason the reasons why we aren't convinced, or the reasons why we are convinced of propositions, can sometimes be so obvious to us that like needing to articulate that seems even silly. Like if, like, for example, like we can think of propositions like Travis, dinosaurs 65 million years ago created World of Warcraft. No, I don't believe that proposition. Why? Because I have really good reasons to believe that didn't happen. What are your good reasons? Because I know dinosaurs did not create any computer games. How do you know that? Because we understand the kind of creatures that dinosaurs were. We have no good reason to believe they created any kind of electronic technology. And I would go through all of these things about reality. But the main thing being there is that I'm not convinced for these given reasons, or I am convinced for these given reasons. I think it's better to call them justifications. Like, what are your justifications for acceptance or not? That's more academic. But yeah, that particular phenomena with regards to belief, I think, I would argue, is the important phenomena that the abstraction of belief as a concept is dealing with. That binary switch of either you're in acceptance of the proposition or you're not. Now, could someone, by way of choosing, like because you want to talk about choice, and I think it's valid. There's good reason to want to talk about choice here. That, well, couldn't someone choose to go to church every Sunday, even if they are an atheist? Couldn't they choose to do that? The answer is yes. Couldn't that choice lead them to, one way or another, by going to church on the Sunday, lead them to accepting the proposition that God exists? Yes. So Is choice involved in this process? Yes. Choice is like choosing to plug your ears and close your eyes is one choice with regards to new information, or the atheist who goes to church on Sundays because even though they're not convinced of the proposition that God exists, they want to remain fully open to it, and they see that as a reasonable choice to leave themselves fully open to it. But at the end of the day, the particular phenomena that we're dealing with regards to belief is whether they are currently in a state of acceptance of the proposition or not. And that thing, it's believed, by me, cognitive science, other fields of science, that is the thing we don't choose. We build an acceptance towards the proposition for discernible reasons and justifications that we can look at and say, oh, that's why you now accept it, or that's why you no longer accept it. A good way to think about it too is when a Christian loses their faith in God or the existence of God, we would ask them, well, why do you no longer accept the proposition? Oh, they would give their reason. They would say this happened, and then all of a sudden I started realizing that this part isn't necessary, and then that caused me to all of a sudden at some point switch into a non-acceptance of the proposition position. It wasn't by their choice where someone asked them the proposition one day and they were like, okay, I'm choosing not to accept that anymore. It's a different phenomena. But it's also important to say that it's also true that sometimes people will play a misleading game with propositions. Like they're not fully telling the truth. So they might say, if I lie about my state of acceptance or non-acceptance of the proposition that God exists, if I lie and say, yes, I accept that proposition, but really internally they know they haven't accepted it, but they think that if they keep telling themselves that maybe they will accept it. It's true that people have tried that, but what Perry is getting at, what I'm getting at, is that what's really going on behind the curtain, behind any potential deception, what seems to be the case is that people are being convinced into and convinced out of beliefs all the time, but it's not by choice. For the same reason that I cannot just simply choose to believe right now that there's a ghost in the other room. Like I can fool around and say, guys, I believe there's a ghost in the other room right now, and I can do whatever and like have fun with it. But the question would be, is there good reason to believe that I was really convinced and that I really truly believe that there was a ghost in the other room right now? There's a difference between simply stating it and actually having that change in conscious state towards the proposition.
That do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say to the church example, it's important to not mistake the means for the end. I can go to church, and I've really been, and you might like this, I've really been trying to get myself to go to church on Thursdays or Sundays. There's always some contingency preventing me from doing that, but just going to church doesn't mean that I believe in Jesus Christ. There needs to be some sort of argument or personal experience or something along the lines of that happens to me in order for me to, so the end being the belief and the means being, going to church or reading Hegel, whether I'm convinced by what Hegel talks about or not, isn't really up to the soul of Perry. Things are happening to Perry, thoughts are happening to Perry, which will ultimately decide whether or not he is convinced of the proposition or not. So the means are not the same thing as the end. You can choose the means, right? So maybe to throw a bone of maybe where you're trying to come from in the choosing aspect, you can choose the means, but you can't choose the end by which those means produce.
Like you
Okay.
can choose another
No.
thing, one quick thing, and then Trey, I just thought of it. Like one could, and this might relate to your worldview better. One can, of course, choose to stop looking at the Bible, stop reading the Bible. That's a choice. But whether the Bible is, let's say the proposition is the Bible is born of God's true word, you're not going to be able to simply choose yes to believe that or no to believe that within the way that the mind functions with regards to the phenomena of belief. There has to be some kind of reason giving. There has to be a justification in order for there to be that switch. And there is a switch because it's binary, right? You're either in a state of this with regards to that proposition or this, on or off.
So is your formula basically you see evidence, you reason through it, then you're convinced, then you believe?
Well, it's no. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be evidence. It's just something. Just some justification. There is something baked into there that has caused the acceptance or non-acceptance of the proposition. So it's the same when we talk about your conscious state. When I say Trey is the devil physic, or no, the proposition is Trey, the devil is physically in the room with you right now.
Do
you believe that?
No, not physically. No.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't believe that the devil's physically in the room. What do you think your justification is for that? Because that's probably maybe the first time you've heard the proposition like that given to you in that way, kind of like the pink elephant one, right? Like the physical devil being in the room right now. Yeah.
No, I've read about the pink elephant before.
Okay, yeah, but we can do that with anything. We can do like the light bulb, the light bulb in your computer screen is the devil. Do you believe that proposition?
No.
Yeah. So like we can do that infinitely, creating these propositions that you've never heard before. But the reason you were able to give that quick answer, you didn't have to do this strong amount of deliberation. You just know that is not coherent to your understanding of reality, and you were able to state your belief position on that proposition quite easily. You didn't have to investigate the light bulb. You didn't have to do shit, really. You just had to think for a second.
Shouldn't you ask the person? Shouldn't you ask the person that's already has a belief, though, Travis? That's not like grounded in reality. Then because I think it's not really being fair to just bring something up spontaneously. Like
no, that's what the demonstration
that they are completely wrong on.
No. That's what the demonstration is, Niv. It's about being spontaneously responding to the proposition that you've never heard before, like the devil being in the computer, the computer bulb in your computer screen. Sorry, let's let Trey respond though.
Yeah. So, I agree that you don't always need like this complex formula to form a belief. Not for everything, but for something that maybe is serious, maybe you should have a formula, shouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. No. Now you're talking about standards for belief. Fuck yeah. My standards for belief are deep and rigorous and directly connected to my epistemic standards. Like I use correspondence criteria of truth. I make that primary with regards to truth making in my epistemology. And there's obviously going to be coherence and different things baked into that, but that's what I think is important to hold as primary because it connects to empiricism and science as a way of knowing, etc. So like, yeah, if you're talking about standards of belief, now we're talking about standards of belief, then yeah, of course, that those are the kinds of things that I believe are important. and I have, again, my justifications for believing why those things are important. And at the end of the day, I also believe, I'm convinced of the proposition of human sentimentalism that ultimately, at the end of the day, these beliefs, our acceptance of these propositions, are born of our sentiments. If we're talking descriptively, and it's our feelings that cause us to switch from on to off, or from off to on, with regards to our belief positions. If you want to understand like where I'm coming from with regards to the physics of this biology.
Okay, I had one thing to bring up about physics that we can talk about after this, but based on your standards of belief, so something that is important, do you go by evidence plus reasoning equals conviction and then belief? Is that a very basic breakdown of your formula?
I don't really think of the formula in like in a linear sense like that. I think about it more in like the globalized systematic, or we could say field sense. I think of when you ask a question like that, I think it's better, like there is a linear understanding of the brain, for example, end of mind science, but there's also the understanding of how our brains and our minds work more like a field, and the field analogy is kind of more apt. And I think with regards to reason, epistemics, ethics, sentiments, all of these systems that we have running, I don't really like to put a linear flag in the ground to say that like this happens first and then this and then that. Prescriptively, I'm telling you, but descriptively, there is an order of events, like we've been talking about with regards to the phenomena of belief. There is that. There is order of events in the brain and in the mind. There are traceable steps. I'm just saying that when I that I don't necessarily see reason or again, prescriptively as a model, that you should use like Bayesian reasoning first before mentioning your epistemic standards, or you should like it's kind of thinking is an organic process, like basically everything else we do. So I don't know the stages, but I know that when it comes, like, I can give you my epistemic standards. I can talk about the importance of Bayesian reasoning. I can talk about the importance, the utmost importance of my ethical standards and things like that. If you're talking, I think you're talking more process to try and understand the analytical process, as opposed to like what I make most important in my hierarchy. But yeah, ethics is up here at the top, maximize well-being for myself and those around me. But yeah, and I know we're also talking about standards of belief, like what's important. I'll like anyone else create coherentist hypotheses in my mind that will be connected in some way to correspondence modeling, born of science is a way of knowing, and that stuff just works so much together. That there's the pragmatic element that it's really hard to put a linear map to it. It would look more like a Picasso or a beautiful landscape painting in some cases.
Just to reiterate, because I've been in these conversations many a time, the epistemological standard is the means. Whatever we gain from science or empiricism or pragmatism is not going to be up to us. Just to reiterate that precaution so it doesn't go in vain. The standard is the means, it is not the end.
Yes. So beliefs, another way to think about this is our best cognitive science modeling, whether you want to call this the belief or not, but that binary switch point of where we fall out of acceptance of a proposition or fall into a position of acceptance of a proposition. Our beliefs happen to us. They happen to us by way, like you were saying, of our choices. And I would say our choices are dictated by our sentiments. But yeah, if you want to know where I think choice is within that, we make choices all the time. They're not free, in my opinion. There's been no demonstration of us having free choice, free will. But we make all of these different choices, value sorting by way of our sentiments, and through that process, beliefs are happening to us. And sometimes beliefs, all of a sudden, we'll find spontaneously that, like, oh, I guess I do accept that proposition now, or I don't accept that proposition anymore. And sometimes beliefs will leave us, or beliefs will come to us, and it's not in a way where, like, we are notified about it. It kind of just happens as we're moving through our experience.
So if belief happens to you, honestly, you the way you described it, it's like it's as non-linear. I would prefer it to be linear, because it's like makes more mathematical sense to me. Maybe I just like lines. But I have a question for you, and I drew something on a little piece of paper. And my question is, of these three shapes, what is your favorite shape? Circle, triangle, or square?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm gonna turn
Triangle
the
is the
camera.
obvious answer.
So you said circle, triangle, or square?
Yes.
And
I drew something on a paper that I think that you are.
I think I really like circles. Why do I like circles?
Oh my
Because you
gosh,
talk in circles all day.
Because I talk
I
in
can't
circles all
see
day. Yeah.
God dang it! It's a circle.
It's a circle. Yeah, you drew a circle.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, we know what a circle looks like and all that stuff.
No, I like that.
I like
that he drew it. I wanted
to prove that I drew it because I guessed it.
Okay, yeah.
We weren't convinced of the proposition that you had a circle in front of us, so you had to demonstrate it to us. And now we're convinced.
Now you believe it.
I have a question, Trey. Why did you pick circle for me?
Because the way you described that, it was okay. I'm trying to use the right words. I guess all encompassing.
Yep.
And I could say that because, see, I'm a square. That's why I like lines.
I mean, I'm an analytical philosopher. I love linear things. Like when I was talking to you about, like, where it starts with sentiments, and then there's born of our sentiments is this process of value sorting that we do in our minds, and this is where we come to desiring to pursue these things over the other things. Choices are born of that process. I think that, descriptively, is quite a linear process. But yeah, when we're looking for linear answers about brain processes and that give rise to mind, the better answer, actually, the more popular answer in cognitive science and neuroscience today, is the brain as an operating field answer, as opposed to, and that doesn't mean that there aren't any linear understandings within the field, but you're asking quite a big question. Thomas, do you want to add a bit as well?
So at the lowest level of cognition, we operate as neural nets, which means we take in we take in inputs, we look at representations, and we do weighting scales, and then we put out outputs. That's one layer of human thinking. That is the logical linear chain. Once you put all of the other layers on top of that, the phenomenological, the relational, the substrate of your body, all of the different styles of affect and affect and emotion that arise from the center of us, that's when you start getting to where the field. And it moves from linear, web-based field, where every point in the field can be saturated with a thought, rather than this becomes this, becomes this, becomes this in an ABC sequence. So in general, we are neural nets at the very base layer of our processing in the sense that Travis is explaining it.
Even if we look at it through the linear way, which seems to be far too low of resolution to describe what's actually going on, but Trey, even if we did grant a linear heuristic, I mean, what are you getting at with it? I think we can demonstrate the same thing through a linear type of heuristic or reasoning as to why we can't choose our beliefs, or why we don't choose our beliefs, rather. What's your, where are you getting at with the whole linear thing?
I mean, what is it then if you said you can demonstrate it?
Huh?
Because if you said you can demonstrate it in a linear fashion.
Before, can you answer the question, and then I'm happy to answer
what am I getting at?
the many linear examples.
What am I getting at by asking you to? I just want to know what your formula is.
So just curiosity. There's no
I don't have any follow-up arguments on this.
You're kind of trying to get at criteria for belief, right?
Yeah, basically. So I've asked a couple times already. Does it basically go evidence plus reasoning equals conviction, then belief? Because Mega said, or Perry said that he can't believe. Wait, I need to pull it back up. He said,
I can't convince myself of things I'm not convinced in. It's probably what you're thinking of.
Yes.
So
it's just kind of like a tautology.
But this is why the demonstrations we went through, like you're asking for like, what do you use to form a belief? And I'm saying, remember when I asked you whether or not the devil was sitting in your computer bulb in your screen, and you gave a very quick answer of, yeah, no, I don't believe that proposition. What do you think, what kind of process do you think you engaged in those couple of seconds it took for you to answer that?
Yeah, well, I could tell you there's I don't see a devil. So right there, that means that there's no evidence of a devil. And if I don't see a devil, that now I'm using my brain to reason through it, then that means that that it's not there. So then I'm convinced that there is no devil in the screen, and then I believe it. I guess that's how a linear process would go. That took me about half a second to deal with it.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the descriptive process, because it sounds like we are mixing and crossing over at times from descriptive to prescriptive. So I think it's probably best that we, if you're saying, what do we know about that kind of processing? I would say ultimately you felt justified for those reasons you just gave. And it happens very fast, but you felt justified in rejecting the proposition, being in a proclaiming your rejection of the proposition, and you felt justified in a matter of just a couple seconds, and that's including the time it took for you to state it and giving yourself a little bit of pause. But I'm sure we could do this even quicker. And a lot of what you know about reality, here's another one. I want to see how you feel about this proposition. I did not think about you today before you logged on to this call.
I believe you.
I did think about you today.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be so sure.
Because I was talking to Thomas about you earlier today. So
it was all good stuff, I promise.
Yeah. No, it was all great stuff. But the reason I thought this one was interesting, because you wanted to trust my proposition, right? You probably believed that the proposition I was stating was true.
Right. And you generally have no reason to think of me. So I could easily believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that reaction you had, albeit in this case, it was false. From my perspective, you still may or may not believe that it is false or not. But I talked to Thomas earlier. Do you believe that I talked to Thomas earlier about you?
Oh, after you said that, yes. But this is not something that is really weighing down on me. So
exactly.
I'm able to believe that. Yeah.
So what I just wanted to demonstrate by way of example, you believed a proposition and then dropped a belief in the proposition quite quickly, and you changed your mind when new information came in. So how would you describe your process there? Because you're trying to ask, like, you want to understand the some kind of linear relationship here. So you just had the experience. How would you articulate that experience you just had?
Yeah, I would say that you first told me, which I'm hearing, I heard you say that you did not think about me prior to the stream. And then I listened to that. So I calculated that you did not think about me prior to the stream. So then I convinced myself that.
Do you think you calculated? Because if we go back in the tape, like we can call it, but you had a pretty quick answer.
Yeah, I mean, it was immediate, maybe because it's not so like weighing on me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just it has no effect on me either way. That's why. Oh, I didn't think about you. Oh, okay, cool.
I think you had good reason. I think you had good reasons to trust the proposition I made to you.
And then I trusted the second one because you said, well, I actually did think about you, and I told Thomas, and then Thomas made a face, and then I was like, okay, cool.
Ah, right. Yeah. Thomas made a face. And now I hate to fuck with you like this, but I never did talk to Thomas about you earlier today. so now what are you going to do? Now what are you going to do? What do you believe about all of this? What do you believe about all this?
I'm such a bastard. Sorry.
I'll do this. Maybe Travis talked to Thomas about me earlier today. I don't know.
Okay, fantastic. Now, here, let me go with the proposition again. I'm going to give you the first proposition. Trey, I did talk about you earlier today with Thomas. What is your current belief with regards to that proposition?
Well, I have mixed evidence and I don't trust it now, so I don't know.
Okay, so that means if you don't accept the proposition, then that means that you're in a state of non-acceptance of the proposition, even if you don't know. So that would mean you don't accept the proposition. Now, do you feel the same about if I look at you and say, Trey, I did not think about you today before the live stream started?
You did not think about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so same thing. You don't accept that proposition either. So, but we start getting to a point is I either thought about you, or because these are kind of presenting two contradictions, right? It's either the fact of the matter is I either did think about you before the stream today or I didn't. That's the factual reality. And I just gave you both propositions and you reject both propositions because you're not convinced of either of them, which is fine. That's even though one of them are true, you don't know which one is true. So you don't hold the positive belief either way, even though you can know that one of them is true. Do you want to know
Right.
what do you want to know what is actually true?
Sure.
Okay. The truth is I did in fact talk to Thomas and think about you earlier today. So I'm done.
So many shifts and changes.
I'm done fucking with you, but that dilemma as demonstrated by how this on off switch works, we can go from okay, yeah, on, okay, off. Okay, now I'm starting to think I'm staying off with regards to these propositions because something is not right about them. Something about the information that's coming at my system seems to be, dishonest here. And now I'd like to ask you the truth I told you, the truth I just told you. No more games anymore. That I did in fact talked with Thomas about you earlier today, and it was a great conversation. We talked about it was all good things about you. Do you believe that proposition now?
I don't know.
You're not convinced of that proposition. Okay, and I'm
know.
not playing a trick. I'm still not. This final one, I promise I'm not playing a trick. But yeah. So by way of this whole process that we just went through, you are having a hard time accepting the true proposition now because of how this experience has weighed on it. So you're engaging in probably what you would describe as reasoning, good sound epistemic guidance. You're weighing the evidence of the situation. Would you agree with those things?
Yeah, I can still explain it in a linear fashion. I mean, like the evidence I'm getting is mixed, so I truly don't know. And then the reasoning is, I mean, if there's any deception, then I should watch out because I could be getting played here. So now I should wait for further evidence and reason. So then you'd have to show me like a transcript or like a actual call that you had for me to believe that you actually did it.
Oh, really? Because even if I said like, okay, the game is over of demonstrating the on off switch of belief, like after
I'm a poker player, bro. I'm a poker player, bro.
Okay, but after that experience, it seems like this thought experiment we went through. It seems like now because of the thought experiment, you would have a hard time accepting the true proposition. Are you not missing? Are you not missing the evidence of what the thought experiment was? And shouldn't you be able to accept my proposition now?
I don't think I have a good justification to accept your proposition, even though you say, I promise and swear on my mother, and I'll give you everything I have if I'm lying. I don't have good reason. I need to see actual evidence of the conversation to believe.
But you had skeptic, Travis.
Well, this is how you create a radical skeptical scenario. But before we went through this thought experiment, because hopefully you understand that this was a thought experiment. Before we went through the thought experiment, you were willing to believe both of those propositions without the information you need now. And because you're saying you need more information, like a transcript and all this other stuff, when it was just Thomas and I talking in the producers tab, you are saying, like, because of the impact this thought experiment had on you, you can't trust my proposition now that we had a conversation about you earlier in the day. And then and you did lay out some criteria, but I could tell you now that Thomas and I won't have a transcript to be able to offer you. Thomas, can you make the proposition, the true proposition that you and I spoke about Trey today?
We did indeed briefly speak about Trey earlier today while we were working on our systems. Yes.
Now, Trey, do you believe that proposition?
I'm inclined to believe it a little bit more, but I'm not completely sold. What I could do is,
so you're not accepting it yet? Yeah.
No, I'm not. Yeah. I could interview Travis. I could interview you alone for like 5 minutes, and then I could interview Thomas for like 5 minutes, and then I can see if the stories match. And then if they match, then I'll be even more inclined to believe it. But I would need.
The interesting thing here, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Trey. The interesting thing here is that if you didn't know Travis, then you would actually be doing the fallible thing, which is like, I don't know. He's told me like 6 different things now, right? Yeah. But you know Travis, and you know he's giving you an example. So in this sense, it's a very low wages, low stakes, but if it comes to like, do you believe that there's a man with a gun in the next room coming to kill you? Like, this is where the nature of evidence and everything, it's variable, right? I don't need as much evidence about Trav lying or not lying or whatever as I would for like a god, or something. I don't know, something wild like the sun's made of green cheese. I don't care. It doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
interesting game.
Well, and Trey, here's a question. Do you've known me for quite some time. Do you believe me to be an honest man?
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore.
We've literally created a radical. We've created a Niv.
No, you could be. You could be, but
he's even doing the could be's. So no.
I never know.
Okay. Fair
well,
enough.
So and I think this is a great thought experiment because it shows that we don't actually choose beliefs. But I don't want this thought experiment, Trey, to like turn you into an ultimate cynic and not have. I mean, Thomas brought up fallibility. It's good to be a fallibilist, especially in these inconsequential kind of moments here. Trev could be just being the neckbeard Reddit atheist and again throwing us through a loop. And at the end, he's going to be like, I didn't talk about you, Trey, idiot. Like, yeah, it could be the case. But the point of the thought experiment was to show that we don't choose beliefs. And like you were saying, you can take him through an interrogation, ask him certain questions, and that would have some leeway to what you ultimately believe. But you can't right now just choose to believe, it sounds like.
But maybe right now I'm choosing to disbelieve, because after one time, then why should I ever believe you?
Well,
you're throwing in, it could be there. I don't think anything that just happened in this little soliloquy between you two would demonstrate that, hence the going back and forth on these things. But you're throwing in, it could be there. I don't. Is Niv recording me?
No, he's watching on YouTube.
Yeah, I was watching it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
by the way, he didn't say that he is lying. He is lying. He didn't make a commitment on whether it was a non-answer, and I found it cynical to go into the direction of the negative direction of lying.
in this game, the thing I find interesting is that Trey is
That in itself was cynical.
once the game has stopped, Trey is still in this kind of radical skeptical scenario with regards to the proposition.
No, I'm saying
always in
the
the game.
cynicism in itself is cynical.
I'm always in the game, man.
But yeah, no, I do think like there was a lot of examples of the different the different weighing there of the propositions going going through the human experience of being like, okay, what the fuck is happening now I just don't know what's going on. I don't have now what good reasons I thought I had are now out the window. So at this point, even when the game is over with regard to this proposition, I'm
so proud of Trey. He didn't commit on saying that the person was telling the truth, but he didn't commit in saying that the person was lying either. Good job, Trey.
Why would
Well,
I
he did though earlier. He ironically he did believe and then disbelieve, and then I forget the complete sequence, but
yeah,
he went through all of the options.
He felt he had good
He said he
reason
didn't
to
know
accept.
what the truth.
Well, hang on. He
Yeah,
felt he had good.
at the end, he said he didn't know.
He felt like he had good reason to accept the proposition, and then he felt like he had good reason to be in a position of not accepting the original proposition, and then we switched back and forth a few times. So it wasn't about Niv. It's not really about lying or not. We're just looking at the examples of that proposition acceptance and non-acceptance, and that phenomena, and kind of the underlying calculus involved there.
Do you believe if a person asked you something that you didn't reason yourself into, to no longer believe it by giving you just reason to not believe it?
I think that's a dumb meme that gets passed around in low resolution science and philosophy circles, that if there's a belief that someone holds that they didn't come to by way of reason, then that means reason can't reason them out of that belief. That's just ridiculous. There's just a seemingly infinite amount of examples of that happening. It's just it's about as useless as extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I find that is about as useless as that meme.
But they didn't reason themselves into the belief that they currently have, though, right? Like,
well,
I mean, I don't know if they did or not. But
first of all, we don't know if they did or not. It's irrelevant, completely irrelevant. People adopt new epistemic standards all the time, and those are the things that will obviously by way of their sentiments, but those are the things that are now dictating what they find to be coherent beliefs, to be acceptable, to be how they weigh propositions.
Yeah, that's where that direction I was going. It wasn't sentiment. It wasn't reason based that got them to believe what the belief that they have. It was the sentiment at the end of the day. And I was kind of like addressing like the question of a monster suddenly being in the room next door. If that person, if they just suddenly believe it, and they'll say no. But I think it'd be more fair to ask a person that already have believe in that. If that's the case, it'd be more fair because they already hold that belief, and then to see if they would change their mind if you just give them reason, because it seems like at the end of the day everything is sentiment based in their reasoning. So
Niv, everything is sentiment. Niv,
then
everything is sentiment based in your reasoning. Nobody is free of this.
I'm not making that argument that it's not.
Okay, but it sounds like you said, well, because they are sentiment based in their reasoning.
Everybody, because everybody.
Okay. I just don't know why, like, the example you're painting is like the example that you see when people try to offer counter evidence to beliefs people hold. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what we're doing. We're demonstrating the phenomena of belief and the different kinds of calculus that is used to
Yeah, we're arguing
justify
that our minds
that
can change.
swapping.
We're
No, we're
arguing that
not
our minds
arguing.
can change,
We're not
that we
arguing
can
that our.
escape our sentiments,
We're not.
but
No.
we
No.
can't
No.
escape our
No. No. No.
sentiments.
No. No. We're not arguing that our minds can change. No, that's not what we're doing. We're not demonstrating that our minds can change. That's not what this has been about. We've been talking very specifically about the phenomena of belief.
Yeah, a person that's sentiment based in the reasoning that they could change by giving them evidence.
No, that's not what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about.
I was trying to steal, man. Sorry.
Yeah, we're talking about the processes involved with belief making. But
that's why I like poker, because at the poker table, whether you're lying or not, you have to make a decision. And if you're bluffing, then I can either call you on that bluff, and the ultimate test or the ultimate choice is money, right? So at that point, I can't really make a I don't know choice, or whatever you want to call it. I'd have to make I either have to fold, call, or raise or go all in.
Yep.
Like there's a consequence to it.
Yeah, and you're gonna. So, I mean, push poker aside. I mean, I love poker, but yeah, the consequences are, I think, nothing compared to the belief making we make, out here in the real world, like in our relationships and at our jobs and while we're driving on the road. The way beliefs are handled when we're driving on the road, like, I believe the right hand, the right side lane is clear, so I'm going to change lanes. This is all belief. The proposition being the right lane is clear for me, clear. So, and then you accept that proposition as true, and you act on that. You make choices based on that.
They can't really lie to you though, in a situation like that.
Well, your mirror, in a sense, might deceive you. Objects are closer than they appear, or further away, or whatever it says on our
ignorance
mirrors.
It's not just lying is the mechanism here. Ignorance could be at play as well.
Yeah.
So not knowing that there's a car in your blind spot.
Yeah, or a motorcycle in your blind spot, right? Just too many deaths based on beliefs that just turned out to be incorrect. They were thought to be well justified by the driver. They checked their mirror, they shoulder checked, but for whatever reason in that particular instance, when they changed lanes and knocked the motorcyclist off their bike going 100 kilometers an hour, it's yeah.
Trey, are you a hard determinist, free will person? Is that is that the direction you're going, like in choice, that in not choosing?
I think if somebody tells me that I don't make choices, I think that's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. So probably.
Well, Niv's question was about free will. Making choices and free will aren't the same thing necessarily.
I was trying to steel man him and where his head was at, like where he's going when he's saying like we don't make choice, like
free will and choice. Okay, those aren't the same things. Can you explain that?
Yeah, no, not necessarily.
You're bringing up Earth, like I can't remember exactly from the beginning when I think it was accused that you said that people didn't choose to be atheists. Was it not that?
I had asked a question. I didn't make a statement. I had asked
Okay,
Harry.
Yeah, my statement, Niv, was we don't choose to be atheist or theist or whatever, and Trey indulged in questioning about that.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I thought that was a free will. I was just asking if that was like a free will argument. You guys, if I was just asking if that was a free will argument Trey was having.
It wasn't, but those two things are typically tied in with each
So
other.
I wanted to outline with one like academically sound and clear statement with regards to belief if we're moving on to a different topic. So you cannot choose your beliefs, but you can choose some of the conditions under which your beliefs form and change. So that's the academic scientific consensus right now. So and that gives importance to what Trey was originally saying about, well, where does choice come in? What do you mean you can't choose? But yeah, if you are putting yourself, if you are choosing to put yourself in particular situations, like I mentioned, the atheist who's not convinced of the proposition that gods exist, but they're making the conscious choice to go and immerse themselves into church still. That choice may in fact cause that binary belief switch to change, and it could, that particular choice could cause them to become convinced by way of the church experiences that the proposition is true and correct. So
do you think that people can choose to believe things that are obviously false?
Not obviously false to them. Like there is no choice choosing to believe things. That's just not the kind of phenomena belief is dealing with. The choice would be the things. The choices would be the things surrounding this proposition, and then either causing the proposition to now be rejected and not accepted, or now accepted. But no, I don't believe that any beliefs can be chosen.
Can people choose not to believe things?
Can people choose not to believe things? No, they can't. There is no choice. Again, it's a different way of phrasing, I think, the exact same thing. There is no choice with regards to the phenomena of belief. That's the academic and scientific consensus. That's what I believe. That's a belief too. Did I choose that belief? No, I became convinced that that is the case. Barry says, what about people with terminal cancer believing they will live? The question would be, are they just professing they believe that they will live, or are they actually convinced they believe they will live? Both can be true. They can believe that they can live right up till their last breath, that they're going to live. It just depends if they're convinced of that or not. You can be convinced as a terminal cancer patient that you're going to survive and get better. Yeah. We can read more, like we can read more if people are confused about why the academic and scientific consensus is that way. We can read more on this.
I wanted to ask you one thing before you do that. That's all right.
Yep.
Do you believe love or hate is real?
Of course, yeah, yeah. These are
Why?
Why do I believe love is real? I mean,
Yes.
it's an intersubjective, conscious phenomena. Love.
Well, what's the evidence of that, and what's the reasoning? And remember, that's how I
I
go:
mean,
evidence, reasoning.
Oxytocin, sex,
I mean,
the language we use to describe love.
but you're talking more of about the concept of love, not like
Yes,
sex. Yeah, yeah.
not the physical thing.
Yeah, yeah. Love is something that has been conceptualized in many different ways over and over again throughout the entirety of human history, and I I look at love as a conceptual fact that is abstracted from other facts in reality that are used to compile what love means, the meaning of love. And like Perry said, once it's used in language, love is attempting to convey some kind of meaning. And now there are differing opinions on what love is. But yeah, it would be ridiculous to say that the phenomena of love that we've abstracted from the facts that exist within intersubjective space and biological facts that exist that we can correlate to feelings of love and different things like that. Like it exists as much as any other emotion and feeling.
So is it a feeling, like a physical feeling?
Well,
Yes, there is no like platonic love that exists independent of our minds out there in the universe.
It's a
So
conceptualization of many different things that are going to fit into that, like how they feel about someone. Some people will lump sacrifice into love as well. Not everyone will, but there are a lot of different things that go into many different kinds of conceptualizations about love. But there is no love object. Like there is no
it's not physical?
well, everything's physical. I'm a physicalist.
How is love physical?
Concepts are physical. Everything I just outlined to you are physical.
Concepts.
Yeah.
What do you mean
Conception.
concepts?
We're like pinballing from topic to topic here.
Yeah.
By the way,
it's okay. I mean, it's kind of an open topic today, but yeah, concepts are conceptualizations of the mind. We can talk about physicalism and whether or not one accepts it. It's just physicalism in my estimation and where I would put my chips is almost certainly the case. There's never been any kind of coherent idea that has gone on to demonstrate how the non-physical could even exist in any meaningful way to physical beings in a physical world.
And so, I am trying to get somewhere on this one. So forewarning. So it's love is physical, and it's in your brain.
Everything is physical. Yes, concepts, all the things I just outlined. Anything you ask me, Trey, is my answer is yes. It's physical. To even to try to conceive of like the non-physical or try to make the non-physical work, I think is just ludicrous, based on all of the good reasons we have to believe that anything else we will detect or find in the future will fit into physical ontology.
Okay, there's probably a better way I could have gone by this, but I'm just going to show up.
Yeah.
So if the concept of, if everything is physical and love is also in your brain, right? It's physical in your brain, then God can be that same thought physically in your brain.
Yeah. Are you trying to say that God exists as a concept? Yeah, God exists as a concept. Yeah. Yeah. God exists as a physical concept. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Perry.
Yeah. No. You can finish. What
no, I was gonna say, like, once we start talking metaphysics and true first principles of reality and we start talking about, physicalism versus idealism and other conceptualizations, when people want to say, oh, well, then you believe in the existence of, a physical, conceptual, mind dependent God. Yes, I do. Yeah. But as as an atheist, as a Gnostic atheist, or atheist in a classical academic sense,
this.
yeah. I I know that mind independent gods do not exist. But
Trey, is your point that a person can have faith just like you can have faith in their
I was
beliefs?
just we got that on the record, right, guys? We all got it. I'm just kidding.
Trey, is your
go ahead. Let's let our friend wanted to get in here. Jay, I can't see the full name. Yeah, go
Joker
ahead.
is back.
Jokers, yeah, is back. My question was, so I listen in mostly just to like learn about things. I don't know what to search for most of the time. But you said physicalism, so the counter, another like idea within that same realm was idealism. Is that what I would look up to see others? Is there others that also fall into that?
So we can competing theories, if we're just looking this up, right, to
okay, that's probably the best way.
physicalism
Okay.
and idealism,
All
right? So you can type that into Google, you can type it into anywhere.
Yeah,
but like
idealism. Sometimes I can't think of the simplest way to phrase things. That's something that I struggle with. Thanks.
Yeah, and no worries. There are a lot of different ideas and like subcategories of some of these bigger ideas when it comes to ontologies of reality or fundamental first principle metaphysics. So like here's a simplified map. So there's physicalism, what is fundamental, physical reality. Idealism believes that mind or consciousness is fundamental. Substance dualism, mind and matter is fundamental. Property dualism, physical substance with irreducible mental properties is fundamental. Neutral monism, something neither mental nor physical, is fundamental. Dual aspect monism, one reality with mental and physical aspects. Panpsychism, kill me now, experimental properties throughout nature is fundamental. Cosmopsychism, universal consciousness, this idea that like, yeah, it's all universal and everything's universally connected with consciousness is fundamental. Helomorphism, matter form composites, process metaphysics, events and processes, pluralism, several irreducible kinds of reality, informational ontology, information or structure is fundamental. So, and this isn't all of them, by the way. There are many different ideas. Hey, what's up, Adam? Nice to see you. Looking good. So yeah, there are a lot of different things, but something to keep in mind is that physical, there's never been anything non-physical demonstrated. Like, try to imagine something that's non-physical and why it just by its very nature could not fit into a physical ontology or physical mapping, a physical categorization, the way we do physics, like something that we could just, because the problem is once we start imagining other things, the question will become, well, how come that doesn't fit into physicalism? Like, why? Yeah. So go ahead.
I guess So in the realm of physicalism, so some examples, I know that I saw a few videos on here that I'd also watched previously, but they were posted on the channel. Things like finding the graviton particle, right? That was a video that somebody posted a while back, because that's expected. Now that would be the example of showing gravity as physicalism. or
Well,
is
no,
it
it's
already
not
physicalism without like within that like as a physical
just
construct?
yes. So just because we don't have a particular kind of physical goods on something yet, like we haven't mapped
Yeah,
concepts in the mind as physical,
yeah,
but the thing is, yet we don't have
yeah,
the physical goods in quantum mechanics with regards to gravity yet. We might
yeah.
find a
And then also
graviton.
dark
We might need
matter,
we,
right? That's an assumption
yeah,
that like
we might need a
yeah,
different physics for it. But the point is at no point are we spending money for good reason on any other assumptions of things we are going to find. We're not
yeah,
we're not like spending money on idealism as a way to like build new technologies and be able to like cure cancers
yeah,
and things like this. We're not spending money on idealism for anything really. It's kind of just like I think it's physicalism of the gaps. Wherever there's a gap in physicalism or idealism likes to say like, well, that's where consciousness is and it's not physical, or like there will be there's a lot of that goes on in these questions about fundamental reality, and they're interesting, but how pragmatic they are to us in our day to day. That's why I don't spend
yeah,
much. That's why I don't spend much time on them.
yeah.
But
It's just stuff that I'm
but
interested in.
I
Yeah,
do think it's ridiculous for people to place their bets on idealism and other conceptualizations of fundamental reality when it seemingly has always been physical and seemingly always will be physical. If every event that's ever been observed and that we can conceive of continues, if that process continues, which we have every good reason to believe that it will, then physicalism wins out. Then that means
yeah,
everything is physical. That everything,
yeah,
your thoughts, the relationship one has with their mother has physical representation. It's all physical.
yeah. I
Travis,
mean, my gut definitely agrees with that. I just wanted to see the other arguments in it. And sorry, yeah, there's always so many things going on. I can't think of the exact thing to try to search in the moment. So I wanted to
That's all right.
ask
Yeah.
real quick to
Yep.
get some more examples. But yeah, I mean, I think I probably would agree with you on that. To be completely honest, that's kind of how I've always looked at it, which is why I didn't even know what else to look into.
Right. Yeah, and
Partially,
then
anyways.
if
Yeah.
you kind of just memorize the term physical and idealism, those are
Yeah.
I feel like where the most debate is between those things, and then people will start getting into, well, some people will call themselves a physical monist, or they'll also say uh, uh, they will say they're a physicalist, but also call themselves a neutral monist. Like there are different
Mhm.
combinations and different things people uh, use to describe their best bet for fundamental reality. But yeah, I mean, I'm at a stage with regards to how confident I am with physicalism that I know physicalism is true. I know that physicalism is the case. I just have enough, um, epistemic confidence by way of correspondence criteria, uh, by way of empiricism, by way of our understanding of, by way of science, that anything that's detected, like we're going to try and we're going to explain it in some way to the best of our ability by modeling it physically, and then we're going to try to do better on that modeling and get more precise, and I just don't think it'll ever be the case that we'll come across any phenomena that we're not going to use you know physics as a way of ultimately trying to understand it. There are going to be new physics, like we have classical mechanics, quantum mechanics. Maybe we'll need a gravity mechanics because maybe it's more complicated and needs its own mechanics. Need string mechanics, Planck mechanics, maybe. Like, how many mechanics within physics are human beings going to need to give sufficient explanations to what's going on in reality? I don't know. Maybe that'll go on forever.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was because I never even considered otherwise. And I don't like that, because even if I don't believe them, I like to understand that, because I like to learn different ways of thinking. Basically, that's how I try to better my belief system. Look at it from a perspective I never even considered, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do appreciate the walkthrough on this all.
Yeah, no worries. Does anyone have anything else before we shut things down for the night?
Panpsychism is less incoherent than idealism. That's my hot take for tonight.
Yeah.
My hot take was I can convince myself of a pink elephant in the room.
Well,
Ooh.
that is
and
the best
hold
lesson
that as a
in this
belief.
entire thing. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if someone could actually do that, that might be an indication of a disorder of the mind. But maybe not necessarily, but that would be a groundbreaking, like that would be a groundbreaking thing if you could actually do that.
I think it's the way I got there is cheating, though. I would say, I think, anyways, because it's because it's actually in the realm of what Wavy was saying with it's my thought process on how I think about free will and things in general. I guess I don't function in a world where I don't act in a way that I think it's determined, but I'm certain that it is. But this function was, I'm certain also that there's no local reality. So it kind of breaks down the whole concept of the in the room with me.
I mean, I would be
yeah.
I would be careful with certainty.
Yeah, that's more my phrasing. It's like I don't think there's going to be something convincing me otherwise, but I'm still able to be convinced otherwise.
Yeah, okay, that's good. The reason why I say be careful, because I describe certainty and the language of certainty as equivalent to a crack pipe in my book I'm writing. So the same way,
more close to be near certain.
Yeah.
For me.
Oh yeah, almost certain or near certain. Fantastic.
Almost certain.
Fantastic ways of putting it. But the reason I say this is what I see is once people allow themselves to engage in certainty posturing in one place, it starts to become kind of like a tendency and a bit of an addiction to keep doing that. And I relate it to crack. I think it is crack, and I think it's as destructive as crack, intellectually. So
I mean, there was that conversation the other day that I don't recall who it was, but it seemed like they were hard right, and it was about the trans conversation or whatever.
Oh, okay.
They were talking about that, and like they said, the one thing that I was like, I wouldn't even have a conversation with this, is because they were certain that you were not going to convince them. Like nothing you could say otherwise would convince them, but you could give all the evidence in the contrary. And I was like, yeah, see, I don't like that idea, but
that's a dogma when someone puts their dogmatic, heels in the ground and holds on for dear life. You'll never convince me, and no one ever will. It's impossible, and I am purely righteous and absolutely certain. And then all of a sudden, you talk to them a month later, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't believe that anymore."
Yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of at the. Yeah. Go ahead, Niv.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the belief in God, and you're saying that you don't believe that a mind independent God exists, as in like you need the mind in order to believe in the God in order for the God to exist. There are people that don't believe that if they weren't around, that regardless of that fact that God exists. You ever consider that a person can just be locked in that state, or it can happen to you, and where you could, despite of the evidence, still hold on to. I know the physical brain is doing that, but it could, if you think that like a person, despite of the evidence that's presented, they could still hold that belief. That there would be a God, mind that's mind independent, that exists regardless of it came from them or not. And if you're locked in that state, you can't really get out of that state of thinking. It you just think that way, and there's no escaping of that, because people do believe that people actually believe that there's a God, even if they weren't around.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That guy Delirium, who comes in once in a while, believes in a mind-dependent God, not a Christian God, but kind of his own thing. There are lots of people who believe, that their God might just be mind-dependent, or they might hope it's mind-independent. And then there are people like Trey and Brody who talk to us a lot that they would believe that it's they believe in a mind-independent God, that God's existence doesn't depend on their mind. But I think that, well, I should say I know that gods are man-made, and that, all of these gods that have been created I think they do rely on, minds to keep them alive. And because that's where I think they exist. But yeah. Anyways, thanks everyone for contributing today. It was a lot of fun. Maybe we'll talk about the anti-AI cult for the next episode. That might be fun. Try and grind some gears. But anyways, it's tavern time. Adam, I can drag you down to the tavern with us, so you don't have to click. But yeah, thanks everyone. It was a fun episode. Make sure you're out there maximizing well-being for yourself and those